Thank you, Senator Warner, for leading this colloquy, and I'm glad to join my friend Senator Kane in talking about the effects of sequester and how we need to come up with an alternative to sequester. Now, Senator Warner, you used the word stupid to describe sequester, and I think that is apt, because what family in trying to get a handle on their budget would just make an across-the-board cut to everything in their family's budget? So any family, because you've raised the analogy of no business would do across-the-board cuts, but let's talk about families in our country. No family would cut across the board their food budget, their rent budget. That would not be happening. So why are we here doing this? So sequester, as one of the people who testified before the Armed Services Committee said, sequester was a result of political dysfunction. And that is very true, because it was never supposed to happen. So like you, Senator Kane, I am very surprised to listen to our friends on the other side of the aisle talk about sequester, something that was never supposed to happen, and both Republicans and Democrats had agreed that this was not going to happen, now take the position that we are where we are and we need to live by the boundaries of sequester. So what sequester does is it interjects huge uncertainty into our economy. Huge uncertainty at a time when we're still digging out of the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. So Senator Warner, Senator Kane, you acknowledge that Virginia is ground zero on the bad effects of sequester. Well, if Virginia is ground zero, I would say Hawaii is ground 0.1. We have a huge military presence in Hawaii. They are a big part of our economy, and in fact, there are some 101,000 people in Hawaii who are directly employed with the military in Hawaii. That is 16% of our workforce. Some 20,000 of them have gotten notices of furloughs, looking toward a reduction in their pay of 20%. You talk about the ripple effect of that kind of reduction in their ability to buy products. You can see what the ripple negative effect will be. And in Hawaii, as I said, the military is such a big part of our economy. States like Hawaii and Virginia are among the first states to experience the negative effects of sequester, immediate. Thousands of letters going out to say, expect to be furloughed. 11,000 people possibly losing their jobs directly. These are immediate impacts. So the top reason that we need to replace the sequester with something balanced, reasonable, fair, not stupid, is that sequester cuts jobs. Huge job losses. And economists of all stripes have said, don't keep going down this path. That these kinds of cuts will severely hamper economic growth and cost jobs in this country. These are senseless cuts. So the state of Hawaii is already reeling from the potential impacts of sequester, which will begin in a couple of weeks. They've already gotten many of their notices. But the sequester also represents huge cuts to education, housing assistance, other programs that are on the chopping block. If we just listen to our constituents, so many of them, I know, have contacted all of us. And there was one letter I received from an elderly woman and her husband. She lives on Social Security and on HUD housing grants, HUD vouchers, and she said, our Social Security checks are so small. And yes, while sequester doesn't touch Social Security, it certainly has a potential impact of cutting their HUD housing vouchers. And she said, I don't know where we would go if we lost our HUD housing vouchers. We would be homeless. I'm so distressed, she wrote to me. Another letter I received was from an Army reservist who was all set to go for his training. And there are, multiply this situation thousands and thousands of times across our country. So due to sequester, he will no longer be traveling for the TDY location to the TDY location for his training. And he had planned his calendar based on his going, and the letter he got was that his orders have been canceled for training due to sequester. So, and his billet is going unfulfilled to cut costs. So failure to provide training to this young man and the thousands and thousands of other men and women who are in our reserves degrades our nation's readiness. I've received letters from people who work at the Pearl Harbor shipyard, which is the largest industrial employer in the state of Hawaii, with some 5,000 direct employees, both civilian and military, who got their furlough notices. And these are highly skilled people with good paying jobs. And when they think about a 20% reduction in their salaries, believe me, they're thinking about how to revise their families' budgets, and that revision is not going to involve across the board stupid cuts. So these are just some of the examples of how sequester will hurt a state like Hawaii. Now, what should we do to replace sequester? Well, my colleagues have talked about it. The American people understand that this Meade Act's approach to balancing our budget is the wrong way to go because it destroys jobs and it affects many people who are working right now. So the budget put forth by Chairman Murray will reverse this path down no man's land, basically. And what the Murray budget says is, let's provide a balanced approach. Let's ask a little more from the most fortunate and wealthy, including the corporations, while including more smart, targeted cuts to other areas of our budget. And let's remember once again that we've already implemented and put in place $2.4 trillion in deficit reduction. So by following the balanced approach that's represented in the Murray budget, we will have reduced the deficit by some $4 trillion over the next 10 years. And as I said, we need to do this in a responsible, balanced way. And sequester, it bears repeating over and over, because we're still hearing from our friends on the other side that let's just live with sequester, it's what we have, and but there is an alternative, friends. The alternative is a fair, balanced, smart way to deal with our budget deficit, to create jobs, to help our families. Because our budgets do reflect our values. And our values are about supporting our families, creating jobs, moving our country forward, enabling us to continue to dig out from the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. So, Senator Warner, thank you very much for this opportunity for me to come forward, and I will have a few more things to say, perhaps later on, about the budget and how Senator Murray's budget reflects the kinds of values that we should be putting forth in our country.